Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. Here on Crushing Doubt, I love to bring on as many stories of people who are recovered or in the process of recovering so you can compare notes and see what it is that you can get out of their story. Today, I have Tyler on. He had a variety of symptoms. He had some mental health issues that were clouding the picture for him, and he's still in the middle of it. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring him on and help you get a view of what it's like when you're in the thick of it. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like, and put your comments below. So I want to welcome to the show, Tyler. You're a longtime pain sufferer. And when I say long time, I actually don't even know the duration of it. But what I do know is if you have pain, it's for a long time. Because if it goes more than like a week, it can feel pretty bad for a long time.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your story? You're not someone who came to see me directly, so this is just a mind-body story, and that's what I like to tell, or at least hear about, in these interviews.
Yeah. Well, I had there wasn't a specific event that I can pinpoint where my TMS symptoms first began, like an injury or like a major like death of a family member or something like that. But my TMS symptoms emerged, I would say, in my like age 20, 21. And the symptoms themselves were primarily, body pain and chronic fatigue. And there was also some other symptoms that would kind of ebb and flow, or travel. And those would be like I had foot pain, eczema, outbreaks, brain fog, acute brain fog in certain moments, and other like eye pain, like dry eyes. And so I had gone to done a lot of different things. Like many people, their story is they've seen everything, gone to everybody. For my fatigue, I went to an ENT doctor, got testing done, actual testing where, they hook me up to, I don't know if you know the name for it, but they put you up in a hotel and they hook your,
like a sleep study kind of thing?
Yeah, sleep study. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and they determined I had sleep apnea. So I wore a CPAP for a very long time. And I thought that made, a difference, but I was still having chronic fatigue. I saw a neurologist and she diagnosed me. This did also a sleep study, diagnosed me with narcolepsy, narcolepsy without cataplexy. So chronic fatigue without like the sudden, falling asleep.
Right.
And then I was still I was taking, narcolepsy medications, and doing all these other different treatments. Like I went on a really restrictive elimination diet, did different types of meditation, a bunch of different self-help books. And it wasn't until I'm 20, and I haven't done the math, but okay, so 29 now. And in 20, I would say 18, I was seeing a functional neurology doctor. He was doing these different exercises to activate the vagus nerve, which is in charge of fight or flight response. And I was still not really seeing any results, but he mentioned Sarno, and he mentioned the book, his books. And so I went out and got one of his books. I got the Mind Body Prescription. At that time, the TMS documentary, All the Rage, came out, and I saw that. And that really clicked for me. But I didn't have that experience of everything, was just got better. I didn't get better just from those things. But I did think that it made sense. So I saw a TMS doctor, Dr. Ira Rashbaum, who studied directly under Sarno. And, he diagnosed me with TMS. And then through the company Curable, I was connected with you, and you connected me with my current therapist. So I'm currently in treatment for it. I've since realized that the sleep apnea and the narcolepsy were misdiagnoses, because I no longer have, like an everyday chronic fatigue.
Wow. Wow.
And so, I still have, kind of, with the pandemic hit, my symptoms emerged a little more. And I still have, like body pain, same kind of thing. So I'm not out of the woods yet, but it's definitely to the point where I've identified what this is, and I'm in treatment for it. So
it's amazing. There's so much to highlight in what you just said. You said a whole lot of stuff, and it was all good. So don't feel like you shouldn't have said any of that. But there's so many things, and I just wanted to bullet point a couple of them.
Yeah.
One, you had a lot of different symptoms, and I'm going to want to hear a little bit about what that was like and what the emotional experience was like, because you were kind of taking us through the facts of it. But everybody's got whatever emotional experience they had. I can tell you from experience, it's hard to grapple with all of those things happening. So there's that. I also think we're going to need to touch base about the fact that you had some misdiagnoses of some things that are generally regarded not as they're regarded as mind-body symptoms a lot of the time in our community, but outside of our community, nobody thinks that. Everybody's just like, sleep apnea is everywhere.
Right.
And you think you just either have it or you don't. So you're making an important point there. And then there's the whole transition from what the treatment was like before Sarno and after you discover this. So I'm going to sum that all up for you again. You do not need to remember that. But let's jump back first to what it was like for you when you're having all of these different symptoms. And one of the reasons these stories on Crushing Doubt are so important is they're so varied. And you were describing all kinds of symptoms, including things that some people don't think of as mind-body, but very much are, like brain fog. That's one that, or eye pain, or even just that diffuse pain. So what was it like when it first came on? What did you think was going on?
Well, it's kind of complicated because these different conditions had different starting points. So I think the way I think about it is when I was before this age, when these things really emerged, at age 17, 18, I was having some mental health difficulties. And at age 18, I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder. And during that period, there was a period of like 2 to 3 years where I was really in the thick of that. And I wasn't thinking about I wasn't really experiencing body pain or anything like that. I was experiencing a lot of fatigue, but I thought that tied into just the depression and stress, because that's a symptom of depression. And I had some fatigue a little bit before I started having symptoms of bipolar 2. And bipolar 2, quickly, for those who don't know, there's bipolar 1 disorder, bipolar 2 disorder. Bipolar 2 is mania is less often and less intense. We call it hypomania instead of mania. So, and that was my major concern for, like I said, about 2-3 years. And then as my symptoms kind of came into remission, essentially, that's kind of when I started experiencing the pain and the fatigue kept going.
You're saying when the mental health issues started to feel better, that's when the the pain came on. I just want to make a point about this because this is very common
Mm.
in what we see, that when somebody makes an important mental health transition, sometimes the symptoms come on almost to take their place. I've
Mm-hmm.
actually I've worked with various people who maybe they weren't so well connected interpersonally, and they start to get better at that, and they smooth that out, and suddenly they're getting back pain,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that comes in and takes the place. So okay, we have a lot to talk about. Actually, your story has lots of nuances to it, so we're probably
Mm-hmm.
going to need to bring you on again as a second part. Hope that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. If it's
Sure.
not,
Yeah.
then you just won't see Tyler again, and you'll hear the first part. But it sounds
That
like it'll
sounds
be okay.
good. Yeah.
So let's take this time to talk about what it was like when you first heard about Sarno. Did you feel like, oh, this sounds crazy, or did it feel like, oh, this is something I'm really hopeful about, or were you really skeptical? What was your attitude towards mind body work when you heard about that?
Um, well, I think at that point, like many people, I imagine I just had a continued, I mean, there wasn't a strong emotion that comes to mind. I think at that point when you seek so many treatments and you think, oh, well, this is the answer, and then you're in it and you spend so much time and pay so much money and put so much effort, and then it's not the thing, and then it's on to the next one. You kind of get into this like cycle of expectation of uh, maybe like numbness, or it's just not like super high hopes. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I wasn't
Yeah.
like really excited. I guess I was just kind of powering through, and like kind of
Like
intellectually it
this,
made more sense.
right? And kind of like, okay, well, this is the next thing to try. But sounds
Right.
like you had been really kind of beaten down by the lack of success, and you
Mm-hmm.
weren't expecting that much. So, you saw Dr. Rashbaum, who I know as kind of the guy who trained under Sarno, the main medical doctor, and he diagnoses from a purely physical standpoint. He comes in and
Mm.
kind of palpitates different areas to see if there's inflammation and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so that would have confirmed it, but for you, it wouldn't have been super relieving because you didn't really know what this all was. So then he referred you to me. Is that what happened?
I don't remember if he referred me to you. I think that I found the company Curable. I don't know what kind of, how did you define the type of company? They're like I know they have a podcast and different resources, but I
Yeah,
emailed
they
them
have they
saying
have
I'm
an
looking
app.
for,
Yep.
yeah. I contacted them saying I'm looking for a therapist for this.
Okay, so I am familiar with them as well. I
Yeah.
mean, this mind body community is actually not that big in terms of the number of people out there. So we do know each other, but I think need to do. We're trying to connect with each other to make it smoother for people like you.
Hmm.
So obviously, I couldn't see you at the time. I don't remember why. It was either scheduling or whatever. But
Hmm.
I ended up referring you to somebody that I had trained in
Hmm.
the work that I do,
Hmm.
and I hadn't trained that many at the time. So it sounds like you've had a pretty good experience with that. Where are your symptoms now? Let's finish up on that for today, and
Hmm.
then we'll bring you back to hear more about your story.
Hmm. Well, I think right now the symptoms I'm experiencing are the overall body pain. I have the fatigue has kind of reemerged, but not every day. That's kind of like some days it's like that, some days it's not. And then I have eczema outbreak, and
Are
it's
these
not,
are
but
these
it's not
things
every day.
Are these things that you feel like you can control some now? Are you able to alter these symptoms with how you're thinking about it, or are you not at that stage yet? Because this is all a journey, and you may be in
Yeah,
all kinds of different places about it.
I feel like, I mean, I'm much better understanding. So sometimes I think I understand why I'm having a certain sensation or symptom. Um, but even after identifying that, it doesn't go away. So this sounds like there's something when you were talking about like like doubt and power and how that kind of correlates with the symptoms that happen over time.
Yep.
I think that seems to be kind of more of my where I'm at. So I can kind of
Yes.
identify like certain things that are, triggering it, but not a full sense of control yet.
You know what I think we should do? I'd love to have you back on very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And what we'll do is bring you back and let's have a discussion about doubt and power. And let's
Okay.
see how it
Yeah.
fits in. And then you can take that back to your therapist and talk about that. But I think you are a good example of somebody who's really, you're in the middle of the process and there are ups and downs. But when you're not breaking through to a certain degree, I find that doubt and power are really the keys. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll set up a time over the next week or two. We'll bring you
Mm-hmm.
back soon
Great.
because I think it'll be really interesting for people out there who are watching to hear, okay, what might this be like? And then we'll check in later and
Mm-hmm.
see how'd that go. So what I want to do first is thank you for coming on, because to share your
Mm-hmm.
story openly with people is such a help to the people who are watching. And I like to highlight different things, but in your case, one of the things to highlight is the variety of the symptoms and all the things you had to grapple with that you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
make sense of.
Right.
And I applaud you for working at it. Sounds like you're on a good path,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll set up a time to see how I can be of help.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. It's exactly what I'm here for. So
Okay. Thanks, Tyler. Thank you for joining
great.
us.
Thanks, Stan. Appreciate it.
One of the things I was struck by in talking with Tyler is that we were going to need more time, because even his story had so much variety to it. And I want these stories to make sense for you guys as you're watching as to why is this going to be useful. And what I realized is that with Tyler, this first part was going to be useful for you to get a sense of the depth of the kinds of things you can experience and various experiences he had, such as kind of not thinking that Sarno was any kind of lightning bolt, but just maybe the next thing to try. Everybody has a different experience with this, and Tyler had an experience that I think has been slow going in some ways, but served him well. He sounds like he's getting better. But I was especially struck by the end, where we talked about that we're going to bring him back to talk about how it's all going. And what he said, which very much rings true with my work and what you see on this podcast, that doubt and power are the kind of things that most people in the mind-body community are not really talking about. There's a lot of focus on the emotions, which is great. But to get a breakthrough, we need to look at doubt and power. So we are going to have him back on in a couple of weeks, and we will talk about how he can apply those things. And I'll be excited now that we know him as a community. We can bring him back and take a look at what does that discussion look like. So I really look forward to that. If you haven't already, click subscribe, hit like, ring the bell for notifications, and put your comments below. I will respond directly. I'm really getting a lot out of these discussions. It helps me to teach you guys what's going on, and I learn through that method. So keep the comments coming. I appreciate you watching.